And may I say a good morning to everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening. Anyway, I think you know what I mean. It's the day before St. Patrick's Day. We're wearing the green. It's just the Irish in me that has made me do that. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody coming up tomorrow. Welcome to the March 16th meeting of the Township of Douro-Dummer. We welcome each and every one of you, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the recorded version of our meeting. And before we do begin, we again remind you it's coming to you live on YouTube or is being recorded for people who would like to watch later. So welcome everyone. And members of council, I think you know the drill. We try to handle a meeting as closely as we can to the real thing if we were indeed in our chambers. I'm going to call the roll for members of council, so we are assured of a majority of members of council. Deputy Mayor Moher, you're here. A big wave. Thank you. Councillor Watt is here. Councillor Landsman and Councillor Watson. Now, our staff present, and this is a monumentous evening for us, folks, because we get to introduce for the very first time our brand new CAO for the Township of Douro-Dummer. Alana, give us a big, you're right in the middle of the screen, on mine anyway. Give us a big wave. Good. Now, I had you penciled in for about a 40-minute speech, but I've kind of pushed that aside, so we'll leave that till later. Anyway, Alana, officially welcome to Douro-Dummer. We've got great days ahead, and we look forward to your leadership, and thank you for being with us. Also with us is Martina Chade-Hartwig, our deputy clerk, and Martina is kind of the boss in the clerk's role, looking after the meeting. Thank you, Martina. Our chief building official, Brian Fawcett, is here, perhaps in the background. Mike Mood, our assistant manager of Parks and Recreation, is also with us, as is our manager of Public Works, Jake Condon. So we do have staff on board who are able to give presentations or answer any questions. So with all of council present at 5:04, I will call the meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that we're on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga Nation, and we offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and their teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Would everyone please join us for a moment of silent reflection? Thank you very much. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest with any of the matters that are before us today? Councillor Watson, please identify the item and the reason for the interest, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am declaring a pecuniary interest on item 9.3, second entrance for Camp Kawartha, as I hold controlling interest in a company that is engaged with the applicant.
Okay, 9.3, I will do my best to give you advance warning of that so that you can leave the meeting. Is there anyone else? Okay, seeing no hands. We are going to have as efficient a meeting as we possibly can tonight, so we would enjoy everyone's cooperation. Adoption of the agenda as presented. Could I have a motion, please, to do just that? Deputy Mayor Moher is the mover, and Councillor Watt will second it. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Adopting the minutes of the March 2nd meeting. Martina, you can't adopt them. You're the clerk. Go ahead, Martina.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to alert council there was a small error in the minutes. The councillor who asked for a recorded vote at the end of the meeting was mislabeled. It should have been Councillor Watson. We have made that change, and the meeting minutes have been reposted on the website for the public.
So these are slightly amended minutes of March 2nd that we're voting for.
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay. Who would care to make a motion on that, please? Councillor Landsman, seconded by Councillor Moher. All in favor? All against? That motion is approved. Any business arising out of the previous minutes? Any business at all arising? Seeing no hands. We will move ahead to delegations, petitions, and presentations. And we do have a public meeting. This is a zoning bylaw amendment. And please note, we do have some individuals here, the applicant and others who will be led into the meeting at the appropriate time. I would like a motion, please, to call the public meeting to order. Deputy Mayor Moher and Councillor Landsman, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, that motion is approved. We are now officially in a public meeting, and I'm going to ask Martina to review the file and all comments received, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a zoning bylaw amendment for file R0221 for Clifford. Fred Clifford is the owner. He's on the line with us, and Jacqueline Mann is the agent. She's also on the line with us. The property is located at Concession 1, Part 11, fronting onto County Road 38 and Clifford Road in the Dummer Ward. Mr. Clifford has applied for a zoning bylaw amendment in order to rezone portions of the land from Special District 230 to Special District 245 and to amend the Special District 230 zone on the retained lot. The environmental conservation zone will remain the same on the severed lot. This amendment is required as a condition of the consent for the severance of a residential lot, which is file B2720, to recognize the decreased lot frontage of both the severed and retained. The following studies have been submitted: a planning justification report dated May 2020, a hydrological letter dated March 31st, 2020, and a hydrological assessment report dated September 5th, 2017. The application appears to be in conformity with the provincial policy statement. There's no evidence that the application conflicts with the growth plan. The official plan designates the property as hamlet, and residential uses are encouraged in the hamlet designation. The requested zoning bylaw amendment is required in order to meet the conditions of the severance to prohibit construction and/or site alteration within hydrological features and meets the intent of the municipal and provincial policies. The environmental conservation zone limits the permitted uses to those appropriate for sensitive features and their associated vegetative protective zones. We have received comments on this application. I have two to read to you. The first one is from Enbridge Gas. They state they do not object to the proposed application. However, we reserve the right to amend our development conditions in the future. We've also received a comment from Otonabee Region Conservation Authority. They state it's the opinion of the Otonabee Conservation staff that the application is consistent with section 3.1 relating to natural hazards of the provincial policy statement. The building envelope was proposed as part of the application is greater than 30 meters from the EC zone. Therefore, it's the opinion of the Otonabee Conservation staff that the application is consistent with provincial policy statement sections 2.1 and 2.2, and further that permits from the agency will not be required for the building area. And those are all of the written comments we've received. I believe there's a member of the public who did want to speak to the application as well. That's Mr. Beecroft. I see his photo, but I don't hear him yet.
Okay, we will get there's Keith down there. Hello, Keith. We will get to you in due time. We have heard the details of the application. It is time now for the applicant, Mr. Clifford, or Jacqueline. Where are you? There you are. You're trying to hide from me. I see you. You are representing Mr. Clifford, I understand.
Yes, I am.
So it is time for the applicant to speak in favor of the application. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, members of council, for giving us the opportunity to share our project with you today. I'd also like to thank Martina. She gave a very excellent review of the details of the zoning bylaw amendment, so I don't want to duplicate them. This zoning bylaw application is, it's to meet conditions of consent, but consent B2720, that was approved on December 16th. And that requirement was that the zoning meets the municipality's satisfaction. So I won't go into, Martina already went into the details, but if you have any questions at all, Mr. Clifford, the landowner, and I are both here and happy to answer them to the best of our ability.
Okay, thank you, Jacqueline. Fred, is there anything you'd like to add at this portion? You can go ahead if you like.
No, I think Jacqueline covered it quite well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Fred. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? Okay, seeing no hands, it is now time to speak in opposition to the matter or to ask any questions you like to ask. Mr. Beecroft, I believe you were, is that right, Martina? Is Keith the only one with us here tonight?
That's correct. Mr. Beecroft is the only
Good.
member of the public who's registered to speak today.
Keith, and we're very glad to have you. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you and to the council as well, thank you for answering the questions that we've had up until now. And while I don't disagree with all of the nuances, obviously, that Martina has walked through, we still have concerns primarily about the water in the area. And I fully respect that GHE has done the hydro surveys and so on and so forth, but that doesn't change the fact that everybody along 38 has water totes plumbed into the sides of our houses. The applicant's own sister doesn't have water to the same degree that you would expect in a household. And we just still have more questions than answers. So if there was some sort of interim control bylaw that we could use to examine this, it just seems like it's been a game of leapfrog where there were going to be houses off of Banks Avenue and there wasn't water available. So now there was 3 houses proposed off 38 with the road allowance that was told was going to be used to get hay off the field, but now there's going to be houses back there. So I think at this point, we're just hoping for some clarity and transparency from the developer such that we can understand what the full plan is for both the blue property and the purple property as indicated on the notice that we received, such that we're not having to have these meetings all the time where we keep on getting blindsided by houses that want to go in and so on and so forth. Primarily protecting water sources being the number one issue. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Keith. Jacqueline, is there any comment that you can make as a representative of the applicant?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. This has, of course, Mr. Beecroft this has been an ongoing concern, and because of that fact, a condition of consent, which is usually never a condition of consent, is that a well had to be drilled to demonstrate there was water before they were even allowed to get the severance. Typically, that happens after. It's not a condition of severance. So when we, in fact, have actually met that condition to this point, GHD has dug a well and they had the best water that they've ever found back there. They had 37.8 liters per minute, 10 US gallons per minute, and it was very good quality water as well. It's farther back in the property. So, and they also did an interference test with an adjacent well and felt that it met all the parameters when they did that. Now this was done, the well was dug on it was completed in January 2021. So not a high water time. So GHD professionally felt that a well was, and there's just one well at the southern section. This portion of the property is completed in its development. And that was mostly because of the water conditions. Now, in terms of the incremental development that Mr. Beecroft brought up, that's the nature of development. I understand and I'm sympathetic that it's hard not to know what's going to be there in the future, but this area is designated for future residential development as a hamlet. So in the province of Ontario, very few places in rural areas can be developed for residential development, and hamlets and urban areas are the only ones. So the land to the north, a portion of that, if I don't know if you have the plan, a portion of that is wooded and also sloped. That area will not be developed because of environmental constraints and in conditions on that, environmental conditions that will be preserved. The land to the north, there's no development proposal right now for for that land. And again, there was lower water up there, so we would have to demonstrate adequate water before any development would be permitted in that section anyways, which is a cost. And in the future, I don't know, I'm not sure what will happen there. It's designated for residential development. So I hope that provides some answers, and also in terms of the water for the proposed lot, that it has been demonstrated that there's adequate water there.
Keith, did you want to say
Through
something
you,
else?
Mr. Mayor, and I would respectfully disagree that January is a high water time. We're specifically referring, for the 6 months following the summer when, and again, I understand that the tests were done. I've read the reports. I've seen the reports. We truck water in the summer and fall because the water is dry. That's irrefutable. And I understand that the tests were done in January, but at the end of the day, Warsaw has notoriously had low water issues. I understand that we live in a hamlet. I've seen the yellow zones on the county map. I understand all of that. All we're asking for is a bit of transparency and some understanding, perhaps from the township, some protections in place. And maybe that's a follow-up question. Is it the developer that we go through, the township, the county, GHD when we run out of water? How are we guaranteed that our water is not impacted? And if it is impacted, who bears the brunt of that?
I guess we're all looking at each other to answer that question.
Well,
okay, go ahead,
well,
Jacqueline.
through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess in terms of the development process and in terms of the rezoning and the consent application, we are going on the word of engineers. And again, the water on the back of this property is lower in it's lower down. It's actually not being taken, like the land is lower down. So that water being taken has less, it's going into the wetland area. It's not coming off the same area as the lands to the north. So I think there's more water in terms of that parcel right there. The parcel we're talking about right now slated for residential development. I have to go on the GHD's recommendations, and they've met the ministry rules in terms of the water that's coming out of that well.
And again, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not disputing the results that they found. I'm letting you know that having lived here for 15 years, we run out of water, and that's not captured in the report. I would also argue that the houses that have been built are not your standard Warsaw houses. They're much larger dwellings with a much more severe strain on a water system. So I'm just looking for some assertion from county council, from township council, from GHD, from the developer, whomever it is, that the water source will be protected, and I'm just not hearing that.
And Jacqueline, could I take the liberty of asking you, were Keith's concerns addressed by the consultant that was used? Did he answer these questions in his report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, he did a very fulsome, this report's from February 15th. And again, it's the well testing report for this new well. And I guess I am not an engineer, but they know the conditions of this land, and they did an interference test on an adjacent property. They do know the area. They work out of Peterborough. So I am making the assumption that yes, they would have taken all considerations of the local area. Also, as I stated previously, typically the well isn't dug right now. Like the well in the process, it's done after the consent application has been finalized. So by doing this right now is demonstrating that there's water, that this well, and I think what Mr. Beecroft is saying, in future development, will it have, if this keeps happening and the water is low, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what the northern portion holds in it. But in terms of the well construction on the proposed severed parcel, there's adequate water there from what he saw, from what the pumping test and interference tests that were completed.
Well, Keith's concerns are very real, not getting around that at all. But I guess from the township's perspective, we have no choice but to rely on professionals to provide reports. None of us are water engineers or any of those things. And that's why there's this huge laundry list of rules that have to be checked off. And we count on the fact that these people are being honest with us and are being truthful and are being thorough. And that's what we have to go by. Carl, you go ahead. You're muted, Carl.
Thank you for the information. I just want to make the point of the official plan for Douro-Dummer Township is in the process of being updated currently. There's going to be some public meetings, and I'm wondering the northern section that may be suspect in future water sources perhaps should be considered for non-development or non-hamlet part of that process because I think there's been some testing done in that area that were not successful, and perhaps that would be the prevent against future development that might be further jeopardize the issue with lack of water in the area.
Okay, we are dealing with what we have to deal with here with this particular application right now, so that's what we have to go with. Jacqueline, do you have another comment?
I was through you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say another possibility. There's other possibilities in the future in terms of municipal water servicing that could also be explored. Who knows in the future when that land goes for development, there might be water sources that we haven't looked at yet.
You sure don't appreciate water till you haven't got it.
Yeah.
Fred, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I would just offer that, one has to understand, the water sources on the property. I mean, as I mentioned in a previous meeting, our family's owned this property for over a century now. And when one digs a 6-foot hole at the bottom of the hill, which is immediately north of the proposed severed lot, we raised a family of 6 people and a couple of hundred head of cattle from a 6-foot well. So if one was to develop the rest of the property, we could source water from that southern part of the existing parcel of land. So, I acknowledge that there is a shortage of water when you get to the north, but certainly along that ridge, there is a lot of water, and that's a solution for the residual component of the property if and when it ever is developed, which there isn't currently any plan.
Okay, is there anyone else would like to speak for or against before I turn things over to council? I'm sure they have some questions they'd like to ask on the application. Okay, seeing no hands, I will indeed turn things over to members of council. Any questions that you have on this application? Go ahead, Sheila.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, listening to this conversation, I haven't heard an answer to Mr. Beecroft's question. What happens should his water be impacted? I haven't heard any answer to that yet. And I'm not sure what the answer is, but...
Is there anyone who would like to tackle that question? Martina, you've had your hands on this as much as anyone in a planning perspective.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. As you've mentioned before, the township relies on the studies we receive. When the original consents were done, which is the 3 lots that currently exist, this was an issue as well at that time. And that was the report from September 2017 that was previously mentioned. That report was peer reviewed by the county's peer reviewer, Stantec, and they had asked at that time for additional works to be done when they completed the peer review, and then those works were completed and provided back to them. And Stantec at that time was satisfied with the work that was completed and that the water was sufficient in that area and it wasn't going to impact the neighborhood. We also had a condition at that time. There was quite a bit of salt in the water, so we did include a condition on that consent to have it registered on title. So should someone with a heart condition or some other medical situation where they need to be aware of sodium content, that they would know that when they went to purchase the property. So that's what we've done in the past. We had an updated hydrological letter. So we, as a township, we have to go on what the professionals say.
Okay. Okay, Sheila?
Thank you.
Other members of council, time for your questions. No questions? Okay, you've heard the facts, you've heard the application in the official public meeting, and ask for a motion, please, to close the public meeting. Mr. Moher, and seconded by Councillor Watson. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. The meeting is over. And what we usually do in a case like this, we move the bylaw up to this point in the meeting so the applicant can know one way or the other whether it got approved or not. So it's bylaw 11.1. Is any member of council prepared to approve or deny that bylaw? Time to raise your hand and go with it. Is there any member of council willing to approve bylaw 11.1 for this application or to deny it? Okay, Madam Clerk, what is the process? We do not have a mover on that bylaw. What is the process moving forward, please?
If council chooses not to make a decision, it would show up on the next agenda.
Okay, that's going to be the way it is then. Last call for anyone to make a motion. Okay, it will come to the next meeting on the agenda for approval or denial. Thank you very much, everyone. That concludes our public meeting. We are going to move ahead to other business and staff reports. 9.1, green funding opportunities from the building department. Who is tackling? Brian, I'm seeing your face on the screen. When money's involved, I see you start smiling. That's good. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, thank you. So I just want to preface this memo is very preliminary and might appear a little bit cryptic, and there is a reason for that in that the fact that the information is not public at this time, but I wanted to apprise council as early as we could that there is some very exciting news on the horizon. And that news is that we have been asked by a funding agency to make an application for some green funding for our construction initiatives. The funding timeline will probably be about 1.5 to 2 years by the time we get through everything and actually have money in our hands. But the fund will be quite significant potentially and capable of stimulating a lot of projects through grants and financial incentives, as well as reimbursing the municipality for any costs of administration. So there wouldn't be any impact to the municipality at this time expected. The other piece is that public education and stakeholder engagement, marketing, et cetera, will be a big part of this whole project. So it's going to really be similar to our sustainable development program in terms of the level of output that we put out in terms of the finished product. It'll be something that Douro-Dummer can be really proud of. And part of this is that we're going to be targeting not just new home construction with our embodied carbon program, but we'll also be looking at existing home renovation projects and deep energy retrofits for existing housing to look at reducing greenhouse gas emissions and operating costs for a wide variety of the residents. So it won't just be for the new home builders in the township, it'll also be for all of our existing residents as well. Second to that, that part is that we also have been formally asked to participate in a separate second funding application where we will be a partner agency, not the applicant. And that program will be specifically for deep energy retrofits to existing housing. And the neatest part about all of this is that both of those applications can work together. It's anticipated they'll work together and the funds will be used to leverage each other to maximize effort and will certainly have a really big impact when the time comes. So we'll be coming back to council in a few months, hopefully with a formal resolution and a lot more information about this. But I just wanted to sort of advise council now that this is where the direction that we're going in, and just make council aware of the future opportunities that have been presented. And it's all been in part to the Sustainable Development Program that was approved by council shortly before COVID hit. And obviously, that's been a struggle with the program, but we're going to continue to work on everything and look forward to lots of positive news in the future.
Thank you, Brian. And that indeed is good news. And for the benefit of our new CAO and for everyone listening, Township of Douro-Dummer, we're very proud to take the lead and take the initiative, and largely thanks to Brian here, on new construction methods that are green friendly, that have all kinds of environmental positive points to it. And we got a lot of attention over it. It's just a wonderful idea. We've only just kind of broken through the surface, but it's a great idea. And this is proving that we're walking past that and increasing it even more. So we're kind of leaders in the entire province over this. And I think we're all very proud of it. So this could be the start of something big. That's an old Bobby Darin song. You wouldn't remember that though, Brian, I'm sure. Okay, Brian, that is great news. Keep this attitude up, and we're very proud of you. Thank you for leading us on this. Any questions on the report? Okay, seeing no hands, I'll ask for a motion, please, to receive that report. Councillor Watson and Deputy Mayor Moher. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Okay. Item 9.2. And of course, because of COVID, it's hard to be nice when you've got no ice. That's kind of the theme of this report. And Mike, with our Parks and Recreation, that's what you're going to be talking about. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Through you, Mr. Mayor. As most of you guys know, on March 8th, the public health unit entered into a red zone. Given the restrictions of that zone that brought on to our recreation department, it was the biggest, I guess, change for our users was that you can only do skills and drills, and you can't do any gameplay or scrimmages. So with that big change and it lasting for about 14 days minimum in that duration, in that zone, sorry, minor hockey, our biggest user, decided to cancel their season. So on top of that, after surveying most of our users, they either decided to cancel or suspend their season for another 2 weeks. So it was at that point that myself and the CAO at the time, Martina, had met, and we kind of walked through the ideas of just kind of calling our season to the end. I know we tried to push it out as long as we could throughout the season, but unfortunately, I think that was the final straw that ended our season. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. We did take the ice out on the Wednesday, and it is all cleaned up, and we're starting to prepare for the summer months now.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much. There wasn't a lot of choice on this. It's not something we wanted to do, that's for sure. So you're not offside. Let me say that. Any discussion over that? Carl, go ahead.
I'll move the recommendation.
Moved by Carl, seconded by Sheila. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Thank you, Mike. We can just keep our fingers crossed that next year can be some semblance of normal and let our kids play hockey and get on with life. Sheila, go ahead.
Sorry.
I think she was frozen.
She's frozen.
I'm not frozen.
No, I know it's fairly warm out, but your signal maybe is frozen. Yeah. You're freezing up on us.
Did you ask me if I had something to say, Your Worship?
You had your hand up and I said, go ahead, Sheila.
No, that was just to second the motion and then to vote.
You're delayed though. You're delayed on it then, yeah. I voted on that, Madam Clerk.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. It's been voted and it was carried.
Okay, so maybe put a sweater on. Okay, 9.3, and that is Camp Kawartha requesting a second entrance. I'm assuming that Jake is going to be there, and this is where Councillor Watson will be leaving the room. And for the record, Councillor Watson is gone from the meeting at 5:36. Is that correct, Martina? Okay, Jake, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We received a request from Camp Kawartha for a second entrance at their property opposite their main entrance on Birchview Road. The entrance is being requested in order to help aid the flow of traffic and reduce the congestion in their main entrance drop-off area. In accordance with the entrance permits policy, all second entrances must be approved by council. I have included the request and also some maps illustrating the proposed entrance. I have completed a site visit, and it is my observation that there's no safety issues with this second entrance, and it will not impact traffic along Birchview Road. The recommendation before you is that the Public Works report regarding the second entrance at Camp Kawartha be received, and further that the request be approved. There will be no financial impact to the township, as all costs will be the responsibility of the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Jake. You went and had a good look at it, and we depend on you for that advice. Questions or comments from members of council on that report? Motion, go ahead, Tom.
Yes, I'll just make a motion that we follow our recommendation that we have in our package.
Seconder, please. Carl is the seconder. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. And for the record, we will ask Councillor Watson to return to the meeting at 5:38. 5:38. Heather, welcome back to the meeting. I hope you enjoyed a lovely 2-minute break. Moving ahead to item 10, committee minutes and reports. The library board minutes are before you. This is for back in December and January. A motion, please, to receive and approve those minutes. Councillor Landsman, Councillor Watson. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Committee of Adjustment meetings from the 29th of January are also before you. A motion, please. Mr. Moher?
A motion to receive.
Receive only those minutes. A seconder to receive. Councillor Watt? Any comment on the motion? All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Planning Committee minutes from the 26th of February are also before you. A motion, please. Councillor Landsman. Second. Councillor Watson. Carl, did you want to speak to something?
Yes, just a comment here. Having come from this meeting, you'll notice on the 3 items on our most recent meeting, there was environmental studies done for all 3. And we're finding that almost every application anymore is requiring an environmental study. So, and my opinion, and I'm not a planner, I'm not a professional, we seem to be going way above the overall normality of some of these things. And we've asked at our committee that Martina arrange a meeting with perhaps the Conservation Authority, Peterborough County planning people, to maybe look at maybe a meeting set up for council members and Committee of Adjustment or Committee of Planning, just to find out what might be going on here. Because in the last little while, it's been a consultant's field day on all these extra reports. And of course, many times the item gets added to the title of the property so that it gets carried on to the new owner. And in some cases it's founded and it's required, but I think in some cases it's a little bit over the top. So I think if we had an opportunity to better understand some of the direction of what the province is trying to do, it would give us maybe an opportunity to lobby Queen's Park to say, are you sure you really want to do what you're suggesting? And maybe modify some of the things that we're being asked to do. So
Okay.
that's my comment.
Thank you, Carl. And maybe we'll turn that to our new CAO to look into that a wee bit. It seems to me that all the townships would be having the same kind of issue if that issue was there. So maybe we can get some kind of little get together with the appropriate people and talk it out. So Alana, note to self.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Thank you for that. Did we vote on that, Madam Clerk?
No.
We have a mover and a
Mr.
seconder.
Mayor, I have a mover and a seconder, but I don't have a vote.
Okay, that was so long ago that Carl started talking.
Sorry for my rant.
That's right. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. And item 10.4, the minutes from our muzzle order appeals committee from the 1st of March. A motion to receive and approve those minutes, please. Carl and
I'll
Sheila.
move, and I've got a comment.
Okay, moved by Carl, second by Sheila. Go ahead, Carl.
I'm supporting the resolution, but I think we should be looking at some kind of fees for doing these appeals. I guess it should be added to our list of items to do because we had 2 meetings there and there was substantial costs when you add up all the time of staff and council members and so on. And I guess it would be one opportunity for the applicant to decide whether they really want to appeal or not as well. So I think we need to look at that like it doesn't have to be done next week, but I think we should be looking at it as an opportunity to recover some of our costs.
I know it's the first time I've been involved in a muzzle order. Martina, I think it was your first go at it. Alana, do you have any experience with that, with muzzle tribunals and appeals and all those kinds of things?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not specifically. We did have it implemented in the previous municipality. We were fortunate. We didn't have to go through any of them. So we can take a look and see what other municipalities are doing to recover costs.
Good idea. Good idea. Because it was quite intense. I know I had to spend a fair bit of time here just kind of defining my role in that meeting. It was really quite complicated, actually. And it was very legal and you had to be careful and all those things. So it was an experience, that's for sure. So, okay, that's great. Alana, if you can look into that, we'd appreciate it. We have, Madam Clerk, a motion on the floor.
You do, but we have not voted yet.
All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Okay, bylaws. We have dealt with bylaw 11.1 and have not come up with any conclusion or decision. That bylaw will reappear at our next meeting. We have no action item. Oh, we have one action item correspondence. That's from Norfolk County Council about exempting primary agricultural producers from current and future carbon taxes. What is your wish? Carl, go ahead.
Based on our limited knowledge of this whole subject, I would move that we receive.
Okay, a motion to receive it. Is there a seconder to that, please? Heather, good. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Information items 13.1 to 13.5. Simply correspondence we've received. The Eastern Ontario Regional Network, and there's a big announcement coming up this coming Friday about the Cell Gap project. So we're all anxiously awaiting that. That will be live on the internet if anyone wishes to tune into that. One motion to receive that correspondence, please. Sheila and Heather. And Anybody want to bring one of them out? General information? All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Accounts to February 23rd are before you. Carl?
I move to receive and pay, and I have one question.
Receive and pay. Seconder, Tom. Go ahead, Carl.
The one is, and I don't know what the issue might be here, and I don't need an answer tonight, but on page 8, there's an invoice from Selwyn regarding the Strickland Street completion of the work. That work was completed last summer, and I'm just wondering, with us heavily into budget and budget tomorrow night, and budget on operating costs and so on, I know this is probably accruing back to 2020, but it'd be nice to get those invoices quicker. I don't know, maybe there was unusual circumstances, but almost $67,000. Surely somebody in Selwyn could have got that to us earlier than now. But just a point that it'd be nice to get them earlier.
Okay. Point made. Any other discussion? All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Any notices of motion that anyone has they'd like to bring up at the meeting today? Okay, seeing no hands. Are there any community announcements? Okay, seeing no hands. We do not have any closed session material, but we do have a confirming bylaw 2021-25. A motion for that confirming bylaw, please. Councillor Watson?
Sure.
You'll make the motion? No? Don't want to?
Sure. Sorry, I thought I saw Deputy Mayor Moher's hand up. It's not that I'm against making the motion. I just thought I saw Deputy Mayor Moher was about to. So.
No, I'd rather have you make the motion. That's fine. Councillor Watson and Councillor Watt. All in favor? That motion is approved. And last but not least, before we ask for the motion to adjourn, Alana, I want to thank you. And this will be a nostalgic question years down the road. What was your first meeting like in Douro-Dummer? And I don't want to hear your answer. We'll hear that later, perhaps. Good. A motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn and remember St. Paddy's Day tomorrow.
The top of the morning. Good. Carl and Sheila, all in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Thank you all very much for those of you watching live or the recorded version. And happy St. Patrick's Day from the township of Douro-Dummer. Goodbye, everybody.
Good night, all.
Night.